So as far as steering improvements go, I think I'm done. A new ball joint here to replace the one that had some play in it. I've bent this and twisted this and re-welded it to make this line up better. I've shortened that crank coming off the steering box, which will actually give me better leverage because it's shorter now, so you have to turn the wheels more to get the same amount of travel. I bent this, and well, I didn't bend it, it was already bent. I cut it and made it longer to make it work better. And got the new steering wheel on. So it seems to work, everything seems to work well. So the next thing we need to look at is the travel, the suspension, the maximum up and maximum down.
And we're going to add some bounce control, shock absorbers, novel concept.
With the frame of the Truckster up on jacks, the front suspension is bottomed out. And you can see, can you see? Yes, it is metal to metal. So sometimes when you're going down the trail and you get to bouncing, which will happen, you hear that horrible metal to metal because the yellow springs are trying to shove it down, and it's just bang, bang. So I want to get rid of that. I think I'm gonna put shocks on it if the steering improves, but I don't want the shocks to try to limit the travel. It's gonna hit, but I'm gonna put this super heavy duty rubber hose under. It'll be like just like a rubber bumper. And slide it under there and fasten it some kind of way.
I want to put shock absorbers on this thing, on the front. I don't know the travel. Like right now it is all the way to the bottom, and I added this rubber hose because when you would bounce along you would have metal to metal clanging, and it was pretty unnerving. So I've got a rubber stopper at the bottom. Top, I don't know how far up it goes. I don't know whether it'll go up, all the way up till it compresses those springs or not. So I need that information to pick out what shock will fit. So I rented, or I borrowed, a coil spring compressor. I'll try to get these two coil springs out, and then I'll know how high up it can go. So never done one of these before, but we'll try to figure it out.
This first spring is about to come out. I don't like this at all. It was under a huge amount of tension and it was right by my face. But, I almost quit a couple of times, but it's gonna come out. It's stuck on a little keeper at the bottom. Just need some more prying. And I don't have a way to hold my camera down there, so yeah, you probably don't want to watch anyway. So there is indeed a vertical limit of travel, and it is when that height that supports the front end hits the frame right there. It doesn't look like it's been banging into it much because it doesn't look like it's been banging into it very much because it's not dented. But that is definitely it right there. So it should not hit. It looks like asking for something to get bent if it does get hit, and maybe it is bent. So my goal will be to have some stops that will keep it from getting that high but close. So I think I'm gonna just cut this off, cut these off. I think the main purpose of this little lip sticking up here was to gouge my wrists and forearms when I was working under it, so they can come off. Yeah, I'm gonna cut this with the torch. Zoom. Or maybe the grinder. Maybe the torch. Maybe the grinder. I'm gonna cut that off. That'll be step one. And then I'm gonna cut these off. That'll be step two. And then I'm gonna take a look, see what I need to do. Okay, first step, I think I'm gonna straighten this out. It's kind of bent up, and the same on the other side. I'm gonna cut this little piece off of the crossbar and weld it back. Try to cut these free because they fit, and weld them back on there, kind of complete that frame. Now, whether or not I'll use this one, I don't know. But yeah, I don't like that hole in the frame. Looks like a good spot for it to crack.
So my two little generic bumpers came in from McMaster-Carr. Ordered them Friday, got them Saturday. Amazon doesn't have anything on McMaster-Carr. I got to figure out where to put them. This is to limit the upper travel of the front axle. Okay, I've got the front axle jacked up with my little hydraulic jack. And we are at the upper limits of travel because the main pipe support is hitting the bottom of the frame. So it can never go higher than that, no matter what. Originally, I think these little rubber bumpers, which are now hard as a rock, so I'm not going to reuse those, but they were welded here. No, they were welded here. I cut them off. They didn't match up with anything. And this hoop thing was mounted here, and it looks like it could have been original. So I'm thinking at some point that little rubber thing should have been under here to stop the upper travel. So I got my new rubber things from McMaster-Carr, which are bolt-on. And yeah, that was another problem with these, is they popped into place and there's no way that we're going to come apart without breaking. They're just too old and brittle. If I can put them maybe with an angle bracket, it's really hard to weld up in there because you can't get to anything. I'm not gonna be able to weld that flange. This is a pretty substantial piece of metal. So either I'm gonna put a flat bar across the top, and this brake line's gonna mess with me, or put an angle on this edge to bolt it to. And then I think I'm gonna put that strap back, but this metal right here is like super thin, so I'll make it come down to this, which is substantial. So, all right, well, let me scratch my head and see what kind of pieces, parts I can find.
So I didn't have a flat bar that I thought was beefy enough to not bend, and angle iron, it conflicts with the rubber bumper. You can't have them both, so I took a piece of angle iron and I cut most of one leg off, and that gave me a strong shape with the built-in angle, but it was just a little short angle. So this is what I am using to hold up the rubber bumpers.
Okay, I don't know how good you can see this or not, but I've got a flat bar with a little flange for just a little extra strength, and it's clamped to the part of the frame that bounces up and down. And then I got a little piece of an angle clamped to that on both sides. So I'm gonna take it out and weld it up and cut. It's way too long, gotta cut it back here. And then drill a hole in the top for the rubber bumper, and then get it back in here and weld it as best I can. And that's kind of why I put the little extra angle iron, to give me a little extra welding surface, because it's my welding's nothing to brag about, and it's really hard to get up in here, but I think this will hold. So I'm gonna undo the clamps that hold it to the frame, take it out, weld it up and trim it, and get my little flap disc, my little pneumatic flap disc, and try to clean some of this rust and paint off so I can get a reasonably decent weld. So this is my little bumper holder part, and it's just gonna drop in place right there. And I'm gonna weld it, and then I'll make something for the bumpers to bump on. Of course, I'll take the rubber off to weld, but yeah, it's ready to weld. Okay, this is the band that was on here, and it's going back pretty much in the same place. I had to bend it a little bit. Now this band is medium heavy steel. This is very thin steel. This is my weld, so I don't totally trust that. This is heavy steel, so I'm gonna put a beefer upper right there. Now my little bumpers are 1.25 inches tall, so I got this board clamped in there, and it is 5/8 of an inch thick. Now this is going to mean that before that pipe can touch the frame, both rubber bumpers are going to have to be compressed half of their thickness. I don't think that'll ever happen. I could go down more, but I want, the maximum range I can get within reason. And also, this front axle tilts, it pivots, so I'm not sure how that's going to affect stuff. So, but I think 5/8 is going to be fine. So I'm going to weld this, what I can get here, and then put the stiffener plate on top. And I wish I could paint it. Maybe I'll put some paint on it and put the rubber bumpers in and
Wait for the shocks to come in the mail. I ordered some. I don't know if they'll fit.
So 2 shocks came in the mail. I think they're gonna work, but I need to determine. This was hard. You can't order a shock on the internet and know the dimensions. All they tell you is what car it fits. And so basically I was looking for a small car shock because this thing is small compared to cars. Almost all the small cars now use struts on the front. So yeah, I had a hard time. I finally found a small car shock that has the banjo type ends, which is what I wanted. That was reasonably priced, and it's returnable. So I just took a crapshoot and ordered a pair, and I'm gonna see if they're they can't be too long and they can't be too short. We got to make them work. All right, we got the suspension all the way bottomed out, and the shock is plenty long enough. Plenty long enough. Still has about 3 inches of stroke. Now we're going to do the opposite. We're going to jack the suspension all the way up and make sure that we don't crush the shock, because the shock's not meant to hold a load. If it does crush the shock, I might need to lower my supports to limit the maximum vertical travel of the front axle, or get another shock. Let's see. So the axle is all the way up, and I have a little bit of cushion left. Depends on where I mount it. If I mount it out here, I'm okay. If I try to do it more vertical, it's gonna be close. I need to put a wheel in here and see what kind of conflict we're gonna get with the wheel. Somehow or another, if I do mount it under here, kind of like I have it, but I'm gonna go that way a little more. I have clearance with the wheel all the way around. I'm assuming I have clearance on this side. I should have clearance on the other side. This is kind of amazing. So what I'm using is the existing stud. Looks like it might have had a shock on it before. It's a stud here. There's one on both sides. I have nothing up here to mount it to, so that'll be my, I have nothing up here to mount the top to, so that'll be my project of the day. And when I get that done, put the springs back in it, put it on the ground. It's pretty exciting. Okay, first little stumbling block. This bolt is American, and this hole is not American, it's metric. So, I'm either gonna have a wobble. No, I'm gonna cut this off and put a metric bolt, and this will give me the opportunity to lower it a little bit and move it in a little bit. Not very much, but a little bit, and that'll help because it's pretty close on the minimum length. So I could lower it 1.5 inches, weld a new metric bolt back, have better fittage, and yeah, that'd be a better all around. So I'm gonna go to the local hardware store that has metric bolts, and they're gonna be like $1 jillion, but I'm gonna get them anyway. So got 4 metric case hardened. I guess it's 4 metric bolts. They're not mild steel. They're 1 step harder. Nothing $27 wouldn't take care of. Have a fine thread. So this, I'm assuming this was a shock mount at one time, but I'm gonna cut it off. I want to lower the bottom shock some, and it's the wrong diameter. So we got the 2 originals out. This one had hardly any weld. This one was welded so much that it ripped part of the bottom of the box tubing out over here. So I'm gonna have to put a patch on it. Well, yeah, pulled a hole out of the bottom. I'll have to put a patch on that. Now I've got the bottom mounts kind of cut out from some angle iron. So I'm going to clean all the paint off and weld this together. And that way, instead of having just a cantilevered bolt, which would really test my welding ability, welding upside down on that, I'll have a boxed in structure, the bolt going all the way through, and I can get a lot more weld on it. And I can use what I got. So I'm going to clean this up and weld this together and round the sharp edges off so I don't have to bleed any more than I normally do. Okay, bottom shock mounts are made, and I think they're going to do just fine. They're going to go right there. So I have lots of weld inches I can put, and I actually lowered the shock by about 2 inches, which is going to better center it in its range of motion. And I think it's going to have a clip right there. I just need to make sure I'm not going to hit my coil spring. I'm going to be pretty parallel with the coil spring, so the top clip will be similar. It'll just come, it'll be welded on that square tube, which is not super thick. But yeah, this is good. So I'm going to clamp these on there. I've got all the paint grinded off, so I'm going to clamp these on there and weld them best I can. So with about 2 more inches of welding to do, I ran out of wire, so I went to the welding store and got a roll of wire, $50. And I'm so optimistic, I went to the AutoZone, or it's not AutoZone, it's the competitor. And I rented the spring compressor because I'm optimistic. I think I'm going to get the thing back together today. And actually, it's not a rental. You just pay for it, and if you bring it back, you get credit for the money. So it's a pretty good deal. O'Reilly's, that's where it's from. So let's get some wire in the machine and let's get going again. Come on, baby. Oh, I feel it. Feel it. It's coming. Ah, there it is. All right, back in business. So it's hard to see, but I welded a portion of a square channel to capture the nut on the top bolt, and now I'm going to cut a flat plate. Now I'm going to cut a flat plate for this side. So I've got my material in the vise. Cut it with the big board grinder. Probably got to cut it twice. It's going to be a rectangle, but it's going to be smaller. Okay, we have fittage. Got the bolt. I got 2 washers to take up some slack, and I got the nut on it, and I'll be able to tighten it all the way down without the bolt hitting the back side. I got it just right. I can pry it down with the screwdriver a little bit. Put a tack on it right here, and when that cools, I can take the shock off and weld both sides, and we're gonna be putting the springs back in this baby soon. Yeah, this is good. Sorry about my shaking. All right, so we got the bracket in on this side and the bolts snugged up, so we're gonna put some weld on this one and the other one and take the shocks off and weld it up, and probably put some paint, and I'm gonna put the coil springs back in. I'm so confident that this is gonna work. So I always knew that if you weld out in the wind, it makes problems. It blows your shielding gas away. It makes for ugly welds. Apparently that's true with box fans also. So compressing this spring on the bench, this is cake. It's when you get under the cart, truckster, the socket wrench won't fit. Using an open end wrench and turning it maybe, I don't know, 1/6 of a turn every time. So hopefully putting them back in is going to be easier, because I'm going to be tightening, I'll be loosening. I've done it once, so it's not quite as scary. Although there's a tremendous amount of kinetic energy going on here. I have a great respect for kinetic energy, the kind you can't see. I guess all those years in construction. But I think this is going to be okay. Might actually be able to get a socket wrench on this side, but on this side it's going to be the open end wrench. Anyway, that wasn't nearly as scary. You just have to unscrew them now and get them off of there. Sweet. It's funny how things are easier the second time around. This was like so much easier than taking them out. For one thing, I'm not out in that parking lot in the sun. I got some shade. I got the truckster up at a more comfortable height. I was able to get the socket wrench on one of the threaded rods, so that one went quick. The other one still went really slow. And then I was able to use the jack to take some tension off of the spring compressors, so it wasn't that hard to turn them. So one more to go. Back in the box. Won't hurt my feelings any if I don't ever have to use those again. It's called Redneck Loctite. Okay, springs back in. Welds painted, shocks in place, wheels on. Bottom rubber back on. I'm gonna set it down and tighten up the wheel bolts. And see if all this did any good at all whatsoever.